But I still have the same shirt on. I haven't changed my clothes in 5 years. Accessible came about in about November of 1997. We were, my friend Barry and I were sitting around when we were about to shoot In a Lonely Place for the third time, and we were jamming on the story for that, and he's like, why are you wasting your time on this depressing college shit when you can tell a real story? And at that point I was really in love with this girl, and he's like, well, why don't you write about that? And I was like, yeah, I've never seen a movie where a disabled guy gets the girl.
Lighting difference. Alan, who will be sitting here, is
Sorry,
very bright.
confusing.
And the drug dealer, who will be back here, will be 2 stops lighter.
I'd taken the screenwriting class in January of '98, and I remember Tony being in that class because he was writing a screenplay called Slim Piccadilly and the Bratwurst Five, which is a screenplay that I still really like, even though he doesn't like it.
We liked each other's scripts, and we had similar kinds of comedy. And we would walk home every day since we lived 2 dorms that were right by each other. And on those walks home, we would talk, and eventually we had the idea of doing a project together.
Well, he gave me this screenplay called The Stand Gauge that he'd written. It was kind of this Kurt Vonnegut type thing of this poor guy who was in all this pain. He spent that summer in LA doing an internship, and I spent it doing drafts. And we kind of got to a sticking point. We ended up agreeing that we couldn't make that film together.
Stand Gauge, at that point, I felt that it was just too big of a project to do. It was a 30-page script, probably about 30 minutes. A lot of sets, tons of actors, and we just decided it was too big. We just decided, let's look at accessible. He sent me something, and I was a little hesitant about it always at first, but then I read what he had given me, and it just had so many opportunities for great shots and for great drama, and I thought, you know, this might work.
When I pitched for 356 from the In a Lonely Place version 2 and 3, it was a really horrible experience. The teacher didn't like my idea, and it was really awkward, and it wasn't something I was looking forward to doing.
And I think we'd actually heard some of the horror stories of the other students before us. These people weren't liking anything. So when we came into that and we read our script, we just sort of paused and waited. All of a sudden, they all said they liked it. Go ahead.
And they said, nobody else can play this character but you. You're playing this character. And Tony's like, yeah, you're playing this character. So by the end of that first pitch session, it was done, and I was playing the character whether I wanted to or not.
I am not an actor.
Up until that point, I wasn't really into getting my picture taken even. I wouldn't let people take my picture or anything, let alone me being a character in a film where I was basically going to be in every shot and every scene. Chris had said he'd done acting in high school, and he was around a lot, and he was willing to take the time to do it. And I did read-throughs and rehearsals with him, and it was great, so he got that part.
Yeah, I acted in high school on stage. My first role was Tiny Tim my freshman year in high school. So kind of a little bit of irony in my life. The person that was originally Alan had in mind couldn't do it. And I think I might have resembled the part a little bit. The long-haired, scruffy, beer-drinking guy is my old self, is what I used to be.
Mike Meyer had been our friend for a long time, and we'd all worked together at the TV station. And he was a funny guy, and even when we were making The Stand Gauge, I'd written a role for him there, and we had this other thing called the Cow Movie that we were entertaining doing for a while.
They're talking about this movie about a cow where I fall in love with a cow. Not a cow, a toy cow.
From the get-go, Brooks was pretty much Mike Meyer.
Before I was used to playing wacky guys who got into weird situations, a lot of, facial acting, stuff like that. Brooks was a person. He was just a normal guy, sweater wearer. The guy who wears a sweater and has feelings.
Hey, Candace. I was in the music store one day, Plaza Records, where I hung out at a lot, and I was in there and I was kind of woeing and hoeing about, I need actors and I don't know what I'm gonna do. And Candace Line was working there, and she's like, I'll be in it. I actually invited Candace to a dinner with Tony and myself. We sat around for like 10 minutes, and he just watched us talk and laugh and play. And when she got up to go to the bathroom, Tony looked at me and smiled and said, "This is the girl, we don't need anybody else."
Are you ready out there?
It wasn't like we were actually scheduling a film. It was more like bidding.
This was done in a classroom environment where we are working with other students doing other films.
If we didn't keep on our schedule, there was no making it up. We're not prepared in any way. We have to do it tomorrow because time is running out.
Production seems to hit a couple snags. What are your feelings on that?
I'll direct tonight. Who's directing tonight? I'll direct tonight.
Now we are drawing straws to see who will direct the film at this current time.
I always felt that it was my film, and so my decision was the end decision.
Accessible was really the story of what Alan went through.
My character never smiles in this fucking movie. Because it's not normal to smile. You're depressed.
And I don't want to make it sound like Tony wasn't in on the decisions, because he very much was in on the decisions, especially in post-production.
There were times when Alan did his job best as the whip driver.
He let you know what he wanted.
Hey! This scene is going to be real fun to shoot. How far are your own things ready for being ready? You won't be on schedule today. What do you think this is, a real film shoot? Jesus Christ. This is crap. This shit.
Spoken like a true creative professional.
Well, sometimes you needed that extra motivation, and if "Can you please come over here, Tony," didn't work, maybe "Get your ass over here to do this" would.
Well, tell us, Tony, how exactly do you plan on fixing this situation?
I have no clue.
Outside of like performing for the movie, the paramount job I had was to go with Alan and chill him out.
There were a lot of bad things, but then again, the lessons we learned from those were invaluable.
I never really even conceived of how hard it would be.
Cut. There. Now we're done. Let's
All right, we can go from there. Thanks.
We finally screened it almost a year to the day to when we started shooting. Somebody came up to us and was like, "You might have something here."
Accessible was an extremely fun, hard, and rewarding experience.
That was a young person's script, you know. There's a lot of optimism there. And I like it for that.
My experience on Accessible was invaluable. It gave me a sense of not only how hard it could be, what could go wrong, but also how rewarding it could be too.
Working with Alan George was probably one of the most fruitful relationships I've ever been in. It's definitely changed my life for the better.
And that's what makes filmmaking worth it. That's what makes it worth yelling and screaming and crying and cussing and wondering if the film is going to get done. In that moment when it is done and people react to it, that is what makes filmmaking worthwhile.
Alan, your thoughts?
It was a blast.